Thor Nystrom, welcome. Mind of Mansion program here, talking about the NFL draft and how it relates to fantasy football. You are the best. We've had some famous encounters, and you've had some famous takes, the hottest of hot takes here. And it was a quarterback, I believe a quarterback from the Utah area. The area around you, somewhere around Utah, named Zach something. He was very hyped as the next Aaron Rodgers, and I remember you absolutely set the record straight on him famously here, and hopefully we'll do some more of that today. And you're over at Fantasy Life now, and talk about what you have on Fantasy Life for all of us to go check out.
I got two position rankings left. I think tomorrow I submit cornerback, next day safety, but then that leads up to next week. Drop the Thor 500, my 500 player big board with the 500 comps, my favorite thing to publish every year. So, and then we'll have mock drafts in between and all that good stuff.
500?
500.
500 guys don't get drafted, Thor.
But
Not
we got
even close.
We got the dessert draft after, as I call it, the UDFA free for all. So people got to have a resource to see where their UDFAs, where they were ranked.
How many players do you rank that don't end up signing even as UDFAs? Like 100?
Oh, no, like in the 500, there are some in the 500 board.
Of course, there has to be.
Yeah,
do the math, man. That's so many guys. It's amazing.
It's not a ton, but I'd say probably like 6 to 8.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, like somewhere around there. Yeah.
Because these guys end up signing. They sign a lot of UDFAs, these NFL teams. They're total hogs. They'll just vacuum them all up.
For sure. Yeah, and then given tryouts as well and stuff like that. But yeah, very few. I mean, most guys, are going to be accounted for on there.
Wow. And you had how long have you been doing that?
I think my first year was 20. I think the first year I did draft stuff was 2016 or 2017. And then I started doing the 500 board either in I think 19 or 20.
Okay. So question for you.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you had Jalen Coker last year?
Higher than most.
Good.
Yeah, I could look it up.
You don't have to. You don't have to. The bottom line is Jalen Coker was on there, man.
Yeah, he for sure was, and I had a draftable grade on him. I think I had him. It was either 4th or 5th round. I had him. It was a 4th round grade. I had him 134th overall.
Well, you had 134th overall, and then he didn't get drafted. You must have been shocked.
I was pretty surprised. Yeah, and I'll be on Jalen Coker. He was one of the last guys. Is that me? Oh, is that? He was one of the last guys I got to last year. And his tape was really, really fun. Coker, it's like he was just mossing people at Holy Cross.
He's a fun player. I'm trying to trade for him in Dynasty. I don't draft a lot of receivers in rookie drafts, so I have to go trade for him now.
You might have to trade for him.
Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program, the guy that ranks 500 prospects before the NFL draft, and he is who you need to listen to in Dynasty. Coming to us from Fantasy Life, it is Thor Nystrom.
Talk to you. Let's go. Ready to run through a wall now.
Oh, I feel good. Oh, it's been a little while since I warmed that up, man. I got vocal cords nice and warm for that. Woo!
You could have been the Bulls old announcer guy, with the Michael Jordan. That was pretty good.
I was there. I'm old enough. I'm such a boomer. I love now telling boomer stories because ever since my wife has really been killing me with this narrative that I always click on sponsored links on Google. And that makes me apparently a huge boomer, according to my daughter. And I did. I fell for it again today, buying a shower head. I did it again. God damn it. Anyway, so I was at I saw Michael Jordan in Chicago at the United Center. And I was there for this whole and the whole where the Bulls are running through downtown Chicago, the whole thing, the whole video scape that they do before the Michael Jordan Bulls games was absolutely epic. Yeah, tingles. Like when you went, it was such an event. It was so incredible. I remember I was behind the basket, so I was first level, halfway up behind the basket. My uncle hooked me up with tickets when I was in college, and that's how I'm an old man. That's how old I am. I was at a Michael Jordan Bulls game, which officially dates me.
I'm gonna date myself too with the Michael Jordan story. When I was a kid, for spring break, my grandparents lived in Sarasota, or they would go down there for the winter. So my parents went down there, and then one of the first days they were like, oh, there's a baseball team that has spring training here. It was the White Sox. I got to see Michael Jordan playing center field. Now this would have been I don't know if this was like I was like in third grade or fourth grade or something, but that season where he played baseball and then he was playing spring training for the White Sox. So it was pretty crazy.
That's so much more noteworthy. Also, he looked good. Like he looked natural out there. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, he only batted like whatever it was, 211 or something." Whatever, man. I saw him out there. They were always showing him on Sports Center. That was just so. Let's cut to Michael Jordan playing in Topeka. And I'm like, he kind of looks good running the bases. He's just an incredible athlete, and I think if he had a little bit longer to put more time into it, he would have made the majors. He was, just that and the drive. You so rarely see that level of athleticism coupled with that drive. Typically, the guys that will have like the fire hose of cold water sprayed on them for an entire practice are more like Tom Brady, where they feel like they have a chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove. They weren't a first-round pick. They weren't the anointed one. But, like, he was the anointed one at UNC. And then, but every step of the way, even though he was the anointed one, he still worked harder than everybody. And that is the thing that's just so special.
For sure. Yeah, and you weren't going to be able to catch up to people in baseball with that, right? I mean, no matter how maniacally he was, just because of how far he was behind, having done the basketball.
That's right, but he could have. I'm just saying in theory, he could.
Yeah, like a sliding doors reality where he doesn't play, he's doing baseball from the get, for sure he would have been a long-time major leaguer. He was incredible on defense. Like, he made a couple plays out there where it was, like, slick. Like he got good jumps. Of course, he could steal like home runs, and so I didn't get to see one in that game. He jumps it, out of the gym or whatever. But yeah, I mean, he made good jumps on the ball. He seemed to have a good arm, at least for my scouting as an 8-year-old or whatever. Like he was good with that. But it was like when he was batting, you could kind of see it. Like that's where he just would have needed more work because he was like 6'6", right? So like he has this enormous strike zone, but he's not like. He wasn't like a master craftsman with the bat yet. So you just had this elongated strike zone. He struck out a lot.
Listen, Michael Jordan would have been great.
I'm with it.
Whatever it is, professional golfer, whatever he put his mind to, that's the cool thing about him.
Yeah.
Do you see anyone like that in this particular draft class? Super talent, but also incredible work ethic.
Oh yeah, I mean we definitely have a few, and we got some multi-sport guys. I always love the multi-sport guys. Tyler Warren, he played a basketball player, played a couple other sports back in the day. Came into college as a dual threat quarterback. I love the guys that come in as a dual threat quarterback and they switch positions. RJ Harvey entered college as a 5'7.5" dual threat quarterback at Virginia before he transferred to UCF. It took him 1 year at Virginia to be like, yeah. Probably ain't going to be playing quarterback past my college career, but found his destiny. But yeah, I love that.
That's a pretty good reason to be 24 years old at draft, by the way.
For sure. And then he gets to UCF and he's transitioned to a new position. His first 2 years, he got injured both times. So it's like that was sort of the stop and start. There's context with all this. Tyler Warren, why didn't he break out until later? Well, the offense he was playing in was atrocious prior to last year. And then again, he arrived on campus. Funny enough, as seen as the reason they recruited him is because Sean Clifford was the starting quarterback. the backup quarterback was a huge dual threat who they used in short yardage rushing situations. And the coaching staff was pretty sure that that guy was going to be transferring the year after that because Sean Clifford was coming back. That guy, his name was Will Levis. Tyler Warren went to, that's why they identified him, because Tyler Warren was like a like a sort of a nondescript 3-star dual threat quarterback, left-handed, and he was huge, right? He just didn't have a great arm. But Franklin's like, well, Levis is going to be out the door probably after this season. We need another gigantic guy who can move to be the Wildcat quarterback. And they ran into one of the best tight end prospects who's entered the NFL over the last 20 years.
Wow. So Tyler Warren was the replacement for Will Levis once upon a time.
Yeah, and Warren was probably on campus for 2 or 3 days. They seen him throw the ball and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna transition you to tight end." And so it took him a bit, right? Like, I mean, he'd never done that before. So he had to obviously fill out his frame. But then, as you know, Manchin, tight end is one of the more slow developing positions when you get to a new level, right? Because you're in sort of this weird in-between space between offensive line and skill, and you have to know how to do both things. And then you line up in way more spots in the alignment than the average player. So that's why it took Tyler Warren a little bit longer. And then, finally this past year, he was ready, and Theo Johnson had left for the NFL. And then they finally got a competent offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki. They stole him from my alma mater, Kansas. I'm still bitter about it, but they used him to his full capability.
I mean, I was an equipment manager at Northwestern, and
were you?
Even though, yeah,
you never told me this, man. For what? For the football team?
Yeah, for the football team. Yeah,
really?
I work with quarterbacks. Kevin Wilson was my quarterback coach, and he was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
that's how he got started. He got started with Randy Walker. They came from Miami of Ohio.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how we got, and then Indiana and so on.
What did you think of Kevin Wilson?
Kevin Wilson is a smart guy. And he and I had a good relationship where we respected each other. He definitely yelled at me a couple times, so he definitely has a temper. But I mean, the guys liked him. He was pretty affable. Guys liked him. But he had, I don't know, he had just enough of the disciplinarian in him that I thought he could be successful. But it's just I have a few PTSD moments from my experience where there were other equipment managers, and if anyone screwed up, he didn't know their names, and he was always running the offense, and he would like look at them, and then he would look at me, and then his voice was always hoarse and cracked or whatever, like, and then I'd be like, what happened? And I'm like, some drill's not set up right or whatever. And then so I was always like the one that because I was the only one he knew whose name, right? So
he's like, Manchin!
He would point at the person and then realize he didn't know their name and then look around where I was and then yell at me.
Unbelievable.
It was great. It was fine. But and then sometimes I would be like, really like, oh man, I really did it this time, or we did it this time as a unit, the managers. And I would come in the next day, and I'd have my ball bag ready to go, and he'd be running up with, the clipboard and everything. And I'd just be waiting for him to like, go right back at me again. And then he's like, beautiful day, buddy. It'd be like, it would like reset button. It's like Groundhog Day. It never happened. Like that's the thing with these guys. Yeah, they get mad and they're hotheads sometimes, but it never carries over to the next day. And I was like so mystified because I was like, the first time it happened, I was pretty nervous. And the next time I'm like, I think, are we going to do the reset button thing again where it's like Men in Black? And I'm fine. And then sure enough, boom. So that was that. But we would always bring in, I mean, sometimes we would start spring camp with like 8 quarterbacks, always. And it was always guys that were highly regarded. I mean, even Northwestern was able to get some highly regarded guys. And then the next thing you know, they're playing wide receiver. They're playing tight end. Like they would sift through these guys very quickly because a lot of them played quarterback because in the high school level, a lot of the best athletes just played quarterback. and then they would come in with a wink and a nod. Yeah, you're going to play quarterback. No problem, buddy. Come on and play quarterback. And then they get there, and within a week, they're not playing quarterback anymore. It's like they get assessed, and it's like, nah, dude, it's not going to happen. But they do give them a shot. They're like, we understand you played quarterback in high school. We're going to give you a shot. In fact, I think they were listed as quarterbacks, like in the first depth chart, not depth chart, but the first like roster list, because depth charts don't come out until later. But the first roster list, a lot of these guys are listed as quarterback, and then you see them it just narrows and narrows and narrows as camp goes on. And then you go, and then you have like 5. So you go from like 8 to 5, and then they end up playing. Tight end was the most popular transition.
Oh yeah.
Because the guys are coming in at 6'6" anyway. They just need, and then they have to go on this regimen where they start eating all the time. They'd have to put on like 30 pounds.
That was Tyler Warren initially. And yeah, I mean, like, in high school, everyone wants to be a star quarterback. And obviously for the high school coaching staff, you want to put your best player at quarterback if you can, because you're going to be touching the ball every time. But it's interesting the way that affects some of the development when the guys go to college, if they're not, the true quarterback. Like, we're going to talk about mostly skill guys on this, but like another interesting eval from this class is Demetrius Dark Knight, as I call him, from the linebacker from South Carolina. And he has a fascinating story where he was a 4-year starting high school quarterback, and then he went to Georgia Tech. And when they transitioned him to defense, it took him a while. So he was like a reserve at first and then a special teamer, and he didn't start his first 4 years. He left at the beginning of the 4th season because they fired Jeff Collins, and then he wanted to retain a red shirt to transfer. And it's the reason that he's still playing football today, because then the next year he transferred to Charlotte. He was awesome. And then this past season, he went to South Carolina, and he was awesome. But he's like a big, rangy kid. He sees the field really well, but it took him a while, right? Like to that new position. But then you see with some of these guys, like the former quarterbacks, you see it on their tape. If they can sort of get over that hump of learning that new position and filling out their frame to allow them to play it and stuff like that, a lot of those guys, they see the field like quarterbacks. It ain't a cliche. It's real. It manifests in value out there. Tyler Warren's a great example. Tyler Warren is really, really good against zone coverage. Really, really, really good. And you notice, like, it's like, the beat after the snap, and you start seeing the fanning of movement of the back level defenders. It's like he only needs that brief snapshot, and then he knows where they're all going to end up. And ergo, he knows where the open grass is about to open, right? So he can get there right when, at that point, turn around and he's, open, and then he can start running after the catch. But you see that with some of those former quarterbacks, the field vision, and then, of course, the football IQ.
Yeah, I mean, you have a guy in high school, right? Most of these systems, you're not going to put him at tight end. If you have a great athlete, a big, great athlete, you're not going to put him at tight end. Most tight ends in high school are mostly blocking. That's their job. They're blocking. And so you just don't think of it. If you're a high school coach, that's not like the first thing you do. Like, oh yeah, got this incredible athlete. We're going to put him at tight end. That's not how it works.
It'd be one of the last. It'd be the last one you would do for a collegiate, or I'm sorry, a high school offense. Yeah, you're going to go to quarterback first, or maybe running back or offensive line if you're big enough. So
that's part of the reason why tight ends take a little bit longer to break out, because they often didn't play tight end in high school, and they weren't playing tight end through these camps, and it just takes a little bit more time. So, what do you think of this draft class overall? Like, what is your overall grade? Compare it to last year, maybe the last few years.
I'd probably give it, like, if it's bell curve and C is like an average draft class qualitatively, I probably have this one as like a D+.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than the one 3 years ago where it was Trayvon Walker and Hutchinson. It's better than that one, but like, a couple of these certainly not as good as last year. Now, of course, at certain position groups, it's better, and a couple of them, they're some of the best we've seen the last decade. The running back class, is probably the best running back class that we've had in a decade. The interior defensive line class is really, really, really good. But then there's other positions, big time step back. Quarterback, big time step back. Wide receiver, big time step back. So but yeah, overall, I put it like, yeah, D plus, and maybe if I'm being generous, C minus, but I probably say D plus.
Now at the wide receiver position, I keep hearing that, well, if Travis Hunter was a full-time wide receiver, he would be the wide receiver one in this class easily. And I'm like, well, but Tetiera McMillan, or Teteroa McMillan.
I just call him Tet.
He's really good. I don't think there's a slam dunk that Justin Hunter or that Travis Hunter. Excuse me.
Shout out Justin Hunter.
Shout out to Justin Hunter, Titans own, Tennessee zone.
That's right.
Yeah, he's Mr. Tennessee.
He is Mr. Tennessee.
So yeah, Travis Hunter, not a slam dunk that he's just a better receiver than McMillan. I don't understand that. McMillan's really good, right?
Yeah, I mean McMillan, he's gotten nitpicked a lot, and it's it's one of those classic things of like
must be nice, right? If you're Travis Hunter, it must be nice to like pretty much just not get your wide receiver abilities torn apart like McMillan's, because we're just hoping you play. We'll just hope he plays receiver.
Yeah, there's been a couple I think weird criticisms about McMillan that I don't really understand. McMillan, by the way, he's another one of those zone coverage guys that's really, really good at that. If you look at his separation rates and percentiles against man and zone, it's pretty fascinating. Against zone, he had one of the best separation percentiles the last couple of years in the entire FBS. And it's the same thing as Warren, denoting it really quickly, knowing in advance where the open patch of grass will appear before it does. But his separation percentile against man was on the way low end. And then, of course, people nitpick him for that. Oh, he can't create separation. It's not that. He's one of, and we've seen very similar evaluations, T. Higgins, Drake London, some of these different guys where some of those guys, they like having the dude, they want to know where he is. Like, it's almost like a comfort thing once they get to the catch point. There's receivers that cannot play like Matthew Golden couldn't play like that, right? But a guy like McMillan, for body positioning, he wants to know where you are when he's down the field. It's just the way that he plays, and he doesn't. As far as like the thing like jostling or someone trying to go through his back, he is extremely comfortable with that. You are not going to break his concentration. It's why his contested catch numbers are so good. But yeah, like it's just sort of a fascinating case study, the way that he plays, but it's not like he can't. And then it's also, that's the way he prefers to play. So I think there's some unfair criticisms going on there.
In the chat, I am being dragged because once upon a time, I liked Brian Edwards. Was Brian Edwards a bad player?
No, he wasn't a bad player, but yeah, I mean, and if he had found a better situation in the NFL, I think situationally he could have done something more. The guy who fooled me, in sort of this vein was Hakeem Butler. I loved Hakeem Butler. I love Hakeem Butler, but yeah,
it happens, dude.
It happens.
It absolutely happens. Yeah, I'm reminded of Brian Edwards, and I'm like, Brian Edwards had like 113 targets in 10 games in his final year at South Carolina, and was also active on special teams and put up over 500 yards as a freshman. So there was a lot to, actually. I thought there was a lot to like about Brian Edwards. He was good after the catch. He was good before the catch. Some guys just for whatever reason they don't quite have the it to translate for whatever, I don't know why. Right? I mean, on Player Profiler, he was best comparable to Corey Davis. Right? I also liked Corey Davis. So, yeah, there is a certain type of player that doesn't translate to the NFL that I do like, and it does happen. And no one is infallible. That is the bottom line. But you do know the type of player that I like now. Hopefully, Hopefully, Tetaroa McMillan is not in that type, but he's not, right? He's at a whole other level. Like, he's not N'Keal Harry. Get out of here.
No, yeah, no. He's just so similar again to both London and Higgins. I think that there is a certain cost certainty and a floor embedded there because the games are so similar. I think the fair thing, people that say, "Oh, he's not a true alpha one, wide receiver one superstar." I think that's a fair thing. Like, to project that. Like, I think ideally, if you could get him in the best scenario, I think McMillan, the ideal, thing for him, it would be like to be one of the NFL's best wide receiver twos. Same thing as Higgins, right? Like, but he could be a wide receiver one. Like a Drake London sort of a situation, but like the most ideal situation, he'd have the star across from him. So you can't help out in coverage. And it's just really difficult to deal with him downfield because of that catch radius, because his hands are so good.
Now, looking at the running back class, is this running back class more 2017, the Fournette year, or is it more 2018, the Barkley year?
Which was the year that the Packers took both Jones and Williams?
I believe that was the Fournette year, 2017, because I think that was also McCaffrey. So that year, that was a little more loaded, whereas the Barkley year, you had Sony Michel, you had Chubb. They went, at the end of the first, early second.
Yeah, I guess the Fournette one then, because that one, it evoked this class just in the depth of it. And the thing the Packers did that year by taking Jones and Williams, you're going to see multiple organizations, I think, double tapping running backs the end of this month in the draft. Like that's how good it is. And there's going to be UDFA running backs in this class that hang around. So it's one of those things. It's like a tidal wave that's going to sort of reshuffle the deck of the running back situations around the NFL. I know Dynasty owners, it's like, actively monitoring the situation. If you have like a veteran running back who's like hanging on right now, it's like, so someone's about to come into town and displace him. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all those guys, how that shakes out.
Well, there's solid players that are at risk. Like, Brian Robinson is a solid player.
Yeah.
But he's very much at risk. And I mean, the Washington is staring right down the barrel at a running back.
Right? Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's one of their few needs. I mean, if you look around their roster, it's like, wow, they took care of this in the offseason. They took care of that in the offseason. They drafted this last year. They got this buttoned up. Running back is next.
Yeah, and I think they're telegraphing that, with their moves. Seems pretty obvious that they will be taking a running back with first 3 picks. But the favorite outcome might even be first 2. I think it's 61 is their second round pick. They're in sort of a weird situation where, like, the late first round, I assume that Hampton will also be off the board by that point. I would not advocate grabbing the next running back there because of the depth of it. But then late in the second, you're wondering that, that next tier of running backs, the Ohio State kids, Caleb Johnson, except like, will they all be gone? And then, would you have to pick up the pieces? For instance, I did a 2-round mock that's out today on Fantasy Life, and I ended up giving Washington Scattaboo at the very end of the second, which, like it's just the RB6 guy, I imagine that Washington will want to be in the mix for one of those top 5 guys. But whole point being, it's probably going to require a little bit of maneuvering.
So who is there? So let's take a look at the board here. So we look at the board. We scroll down. I mean, we're talking about. Oof. Here we are. Pick 61. Yeah. They are drafting late. Man. Houston. Interesting possibility for Houston. They look at their running back room and they're like, we've got an aging veteran and not a lot behind him. That's a team that probably will invest in the running back. 57, that makes a lot of sense. It's going to be tough for Washington to get their hands on Caleb Johnson at this point. He'll be gone. And then, so you're saying you think Scattaboo could be the 6th running back off the board?
I think he's got a shot. Yeah. It's hard to, I think we all feel pretty good about who the first five are going to be, right? Or the names. But yeah, it's the sixth one, as you know, there's quite a bit of debate on that. And, my situational assumption when I turned this thing in yesterday was, okay, we'll side with Scadaboo on that. But there's 5, 6, 7 names that theoretically it could be as that RB6. And by the way, will that RB6 be very curious to see? Does that RB6 guy end up going in round 2? Right? We know the top 5 will be gone by the end of round 2, but when does that 6-1 go off the board? Will it be, for instance, in this scenario, late in that round 2 Washington, or will RB6 have to wait till round 3? But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch that play out.
So if we're in round 2, and let's say TreVeyon Williams goes late first, it's very possible, right?
Henderson, right? Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Williams, the A&M kid for the Bengals now, I think.
That's the second player that I've had to confuse their last name.
I do it all. We're getting old.
Henderson. The beauty is, in both of these cases, they're the same position even. It's not even that crazy. TreVeyon Henderson.
No. Yeah. I mean, and TreVeyon, Washington would love TreVeyon because he would be a perfect complement for Robinson's skill set. In that scenario, Robinson would be like the Judkins, that for Ohio State last year, taking the sort of between the tackles, the unnecessary stuff from TreVeyon. Because TreVeyon, he's very, very athletic, but he plays a physical brand of ball. He's different than some of those guys, those crazy athletes. He runs fearless, and he gets into some high end, some car collisions in the open field, some high impact ones. And then he's a great pass blocker. He's even a good run blocker on the times when they would do the fake the other way, and then Will Howard around the end would follow TreVeyon. TreVeyon would go hunting and knock some linebackers block off. But because of the way TreVeyon plays, he has a tendency to skate closer to that getting nicked up line. That's what happened in his second and third seasons. And you saw last year when some of that unnecessary work got taken from him, that then he was available all 16 games during that title run. He didn't get injured. And then the explosive element of his game plays up, right? Because he's 100%. It leads to things like that 75-yard delayed screen touchdown against Texas right before halftime that, in essence, in the Longhorns' boat. And then the rest was history.
Do you think Judkins goes early second round? Like very early, maybe the first pick in the second round?
I'd say Judkins. I'd say mid. I'd say mid second, but like in the top half, but closer to the middle point.
So if I look here, I think the Browns are looking for a running back. I wouldn't put it past them. I know they have a lot of other needs, but they promised Myles Garrett that they would try to win. Unfortunately. So they're going to be, hey, we got to fill out our roster with a winning roster. I think the Tennessee Titans are in play to take a running back. Giants are in play to take a running back. We as fantasy gamers, we like Tyrone Tracy, but the Giants are looking at their running back room, and they just saw Saquon Barkley win the Super Bowl, right, for the Eagles. They're going to want to kind of make up for that. So that could be a makeup pick of Judkins there. And then you've got the Raiders. What if they pass on Genty? What if it's not the Raiders that draft him? They're going to want a running back. Then all of a sudden Judkins could go there. So it's very possible Judkins is gone by the time the Bears are picking. Then the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams. Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams also a Bear.
Yeah.
This is very confusing. My brain is melting down, clearly.
This is an Abbott and Costello bit. The who's on first. But I think I had in my 2-round mock, I think I had Judkins going to Chicago in the second round. I think that would make a lot of sense. The scenario where, if Genty's gone before them or whatever, they go a different direction in the first round. Well, then in the second, you still have the need. And, it's Ben Johnson taking over. He had the Montgomery Gibbs thing. Judkins would become your Montgomery, and then Swift is free to become your Gibbs. Right, you don't have to stretch him any more than that. You just sort of mix and match. But I think that would be a really good fit.
RJ Harvey, though, RJ Harvey should be in consideration in the second round. Why
I
isn't
agree.
he?
I
Well,
agree.
like in your mock, you put Scattaboo, but to me, it's clearly Harvey. He just doesn't have quite the same like lifetime value rating on the player profile or dynasty rankings because we can't project the same kind of draft capital for him that we can these other top 5 running backs. And then again, there's a big tier break to the next level of guys because draft capital is so important for running backs. We just don't know. RJ Harvey should be a second rounder, could fall to the 4th round. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you on RJ Harvey. I'm a big fan of his game. I think the NFL they're going to be a little bit punitive with him because of the late breakout age, and then he's older for that running back class, right? Like after spending 6 years in college, but it's like we were talking about before. I think there's context to explain why he broke out later. He literally spent a year at college as a quarterback, right? He didn't get the instant convert like Tyler Warren did, and then the transfer, and then the injuries initially. But what we saw with RJ Harvey the past couple of years, that is a guy, even in this stacked running back class, for me, that would be an early 3rd round type pick. That's where he's going to be on my board. He has that bowling ball kind of frame, but he's a burner, right? He ran the 4.4 flat. He really wanted to run in the 4.3s. He was disappointed with the 4.4 flat, which is kind of funny. In the pre-draft, he was running in the 4.3s, but
so this is like a Maurice Jones-Drew situation.
Yeah, you have that long speed, and then between the tackles, he is better than people give him credit for. He's got good vision. I talked to him about that at the Senior Bowl, where he was talking about how his background as a quarterback, like the pre-snap stuff and what he's looking around for and the tells he can get from the defense and this sort of a stuff. But he denotes the danger really quickly, and then he's very darty. It's like he runs low, and then he's just super darty in between the tackles. And then the other thing I think we're going to see more of at the next level, talk with him about this in Mobile too, was UCF. They didn't use him fully fleshed out as a receiver. It was a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage, and he really felt like he could have been dynamic, used with a bigger route tree. I happen to agree with him. And those were the skills that he was showing on the practice field in Mobile in the one-on-ones. So I think at the NFL level, you were going to see a better receiver from RJ Harvey than you saw at UCF.
Look at this section of the 3rd round. Start with Houston. We talked about Houston. They need a running back. But then it's the Bengals. Now, the Bengals are currently being linked to TreVeyon Henderson. So they want to meet with TreVeyon Henderson. There's a whisper campaign around them getting TreVeyon Henderson, which would be not great for Chase Brown dynasty managers, but they should have known. They should have known. All I could tell, if and when this happens and the Bengals draft a running back in day 1 or 2, you should have known, and you should have traded him already. Now the problem is, he's already creeping down. There's already a little bit of air being let out of the Chase Brown balloon because of this TreVeyon Henderson whisper campaign. You should have traded him before the whisper campaign started in Dynasty. And that's pick 81. Pick 83 is the Steelers. Pick 85 is Denver. Because a lot of these things is like, oh, well, Genty's definitely going to Las Vegas. And, well, Hampton's definitely going to Denver. Not necessarily. What do you mean? What? We have no idea where these guys are going to go. We have no idea what picks are being traded. This is all early speculation. Denver definitely wants a running back in the first 100 picks, and there they are at pick 85. And if you're being rational, knowing how deep this class is, that's the pick if you're Denver you would circle for a running back, just like that's the pick that the Chargers would circle for a running back at pick 86. Hey, we have Najee Harris. Let's get RJ Harvey in the building at pick 86. So this swath of the draft, I could imagine like 3 running backs going here.
Yeah, the 3rd round we're gonna get a bonanza of them, and then day 3 is going to be a conga line too. But I think the real we're gonna get like a pre-party at the top of the 2nd. I think that's when you'll hear the Ohio State kids and then Caleb Johnson as well. And then again, when does the seal get popped on RB6? But regardless of whether that's near the end of the 2nd, whether that's beginning of the 3rd round. whenever that happens, you're going to see a procession of running backs go right after that, because it's just going to be bang, bang, bang. So it's going to be really interesting to see the way that plays out. But, with how fluid it is on different boards between RB6, RB12, right? I mean, like, just be interesting to see, how do these teams see them? And then once the first one goes off, or some of those other teams that need the running backs, will there be maneuvering? We start to get a run there.
Yeah, so if Genty goes top 10, you think Genty's going to go super early, or
I do.
Slide to the Bears?
No, I think he's going early.
You think he's going to the Raiders?
I that would be the favorite outcome. I also would not put it past a team trading for the Jaguars pick to hop him.
Right, or the Jets just taking him, because that's just a very Jets thing to do.
Good, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I would bet against him getting to 7, right? Like, because I think wasn't the number. I forgot what his number was in the prop books, but anyway, I would.
What is his current prop for the draft slot?
That's what I was trying to remember, if it was 6.5 or it was 8.5. But either way, I would go under.
Go under. So the Jaguars pick, that could be the pick that gets traded for, or they could just draft him. God, for them to draft another running back in the first round after ETN, I don't know, man.
Yeah, they have bigger needs. So I do know that Jacksonville likes Genty. I was told that, but I don't know how they could justify that with the other stuff. I think the more prudent move for them, you have the new administration, you have the new coaching staff, would be to potentially trade down if there is a fervor for it. Between Genty, between Warren, between some of these other guys, if you bail on that pick, you can really flesh out your draft equity. So that's probably what I would do if I was them, but we'll see.
Cody Carpentier in the chat helping us out. The draft prop slot
What's up, buddy?
For Genty, 8.5.
Oh yeah, under for sure. Under for sure.
For sure. I love it.
Under for sure.
So okay, Hampton makes it to Dallas. Let's say that Chicago doesn't draft Hampton because they know they're going to draft a running back in the early second. Hampton gets to Dallas. There's going to be this Hampton wash. So that's going to be a fun element of the draft, is the Hampton watch once Genty's off the board.
Yeah, the Hampton Inn, I was trying to think of a better, but yeah, we will, Brian Fontana Hampton watch. But yeah, no, that we will be, on that. And then is it Dallas, or will he get through the wickets to Denver? I think that's where the train ends for Hampton. Right. But yeah, certainly.
I'm telling you, Cincinnati is a dark horse to go running back way earlier. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
I've been around long enough to see fantasy hearts get broken by late round running back breakout that gets spoiled the very next year in the NFL draft. This is a tale as old as time, Thor. Isn't it? For
sure. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. And this class, there's going to be a lot of that going on.
Yeah, it's a tale as old as time. Yeah, it's just I think Jaylen Warren's gonna survive this. No, he's not. No,
yeah, I mean, at minimum, he's getting a complimentary bag next to him, but he also might get the guy to, really minimize that role. We'll have to see.
We're gonna have to see. So I have a bunch of potential trade targets.
Yeah.
For Dynasty,
okay.
If the Jets somehow draft Genty, which is, again, right in the wheelhouse of that over-under, then I think that Breece Hall becomes very interesting, because Breece Hall would then probably get traded somewhere that really wants him and scores a lot of points. So I think I think Breece Hall is a great trade target right now. Mm-hmm. I think Blake Corum is a good trade target, because I think that the Rams are one of the least likely teams to draft a running back in this entire draft. In terms of running back, I like Aaron Jones, but also, according to Cody Carpentier, he brought up a good point that with Minnesota letting go of multiple picks to get Jordan Mason, suddenly that backfield is a lot safer, because Minnesota just doesn't have that many draft picks total, and by signing Aaron Jones to a 2-year deal and then adding Mason on top of that, they're essentially saying, listen, we've got these other needs. We've only got a handful of picks. So then that really drops the probability of Minnesota drafting a running back, which I think means that Mason and Aaron Jones can be trade targets in fantasy football. I think that Rachaad White is a trade target. I think that Sean Tucker's a trade target because Tampa's very unlikely to go running back. But there are very few other examples, right? I think that Garendo's an interesting trade target, but you could much more easily see San Francisco drafting a running back than the teams I've mentioned just recently, like Tampa, not going to happen. Los Angeles, not going to happen. San Francisco, interesting possible destination for a running back, right?
They're going to take one for sure. We'll have to see where it is, but yeah, they're going to take one for sure. Kyle Shanahan is not sitting out a potentially historic running back class, and it's one of the reasons that they traded Jordan Mason, right? You had to open up the roster spot for that.
They are going after it. They have so many picks, too.
Yes, a war chest of them. And and just for my draft nicks out there, I've been told this since the combine of watch out for San Francisco to do something wild in the first round, like a trade up, because you have them 11 picks and they redid their skill. There was a lot of changes with their skill positions, and that they might be looking to make a splash to move up the board, and to be targeting a skill guy. I know that they like Tyler Warren. That's what I did in my last mock draft, based on some of these things I was hearing. And I had them trading with Jacksonville to get up and do that. But people are going to think this is crazy. I did too when I first heard it. But San Francisco also really, really likes Ashton Genty. And when I heard that, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. They have McCaffrey. And the point was made to me, they play positionless football. Right. That's just the way that they see the game is positionless football. And those two guys could be on the field at the same time. I mean, McCaffrey's basically, he's got the receiver, element of his game too. And Ashton Genty, as a junior in high school and at Frisco High in Texas, he took over the starting slot receiver role in the starting lineup from Marvin Mims Jr.
Listen to what you're saying.
Signed with Oklahoma. But Genty is an amazing receiver too. So look, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just passing along what some birdies chirped in my ear.
Unbelievable. I would love that. The chaos of Genty to San Francisco. They trade up.
And you know what they say, Manchin? Chaos is a ladder.
And also now you have Warren potential, but because Kittle's injury prone, is that the rationale there?
Yeah, I think the idea would be we can do all kinds of fun stuff with the two mega stud tight ends, and then Kittle, how much longer does he have left? And then we'll have the berserker guy for years and years and years going into the future. It's just a player type that Shanahan fetishizes, and there might be the opportunity because you have all these extra picks. 49ers are really good at playing the comp game, so they usually have extra bullets in the holster. And this year it opens up that possibility. You potentially could go up to make a splash. Last year, not the 49ers, but the Rams, we learned this after there was some reporting on it in the moment, but after the fact, we get to see it on the shows in the war rooms or whatever. The Rams were desperately trying to trade up to get Brock Bowers. They called multiple teams, and McVay called his buddy O'Connell personally, see if they could swing that thing up, and it didn't end up working out. Well, I mean, they would argue maybe it did because they ended up getting Verse and then Fiske in the second, but similar coaching philosophies, obviously similar offensive schemes. Those guys like players like this, and Warren, he has some similarities to Bowers, but he way bigger. Right. So, but you have the same manufactured touch stuff and a guy that can line up all over the place. And it would be an interesting fit, and it would certainly set off a lot of chaos.
What about Travis Hunter?
I think Travis Hunter is going 2 to the Browns.
You just think that's just locked in? So there's no offer they can't refuse for Travis Hunter, maybe from San Francisco to move up from 11. That's a big move.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, so
it's been done, though.
Cleveland's one of them other teams that has a kitty full of draft picks and draft equity. I think I'm going chalk with that pick at 2. But my scandalous take on the Browns, another thing I've been hearing since the combine, is if Shadir Sanders starts to fall, monitor closely the Cleveland Browns to reunite, or I guess they would never have been apart, but to keep Travis Hunter and Shadir Sanders together in the pros. This is going to require Shadir Sanders getting into the mid-teens. That's how far he would have to fall, because that's where it would potentially, theoretically, become viable for Cleveland to move up. And they could do it. They got the 33rd pick. They have 2 third-rounders. They have a ton of picks in day 3. The trade that jives. This is the one that I did in my mock draft. That's out today. Just was running through some of these thought experiments at 15. The trade that jives is Cleveland receives 15. Atlanta gets 33rd overall, 67 overall, 94 overall, and then a 4th rounder in 2026. That jives the on the trade chart, even with the tax, for moving up, and then a little bit of a quarterback tax as well. But if Shadir Sanders starts falling and Cleveland's already taken Travis Hunter, buckle up, because it's about to get interesting.
So who is your comp for Shadir Sanders again?
I love Shadir Sanders. My comp is Drew Brees.
That good, huh?
I'm such a big fan of his game, and I don't understand, a lot of this criticism he gets. I think it's unfair. Like some of the on-field stuff, I don't understand what people are seeing. The thing with, number one, they'll be like, oh, he takes too many sacks. Look, if Cam Ward had played behind that offensive line the last 2 years, he would have taken the same amount of sacks. All right. Shadir Sanders played behind a Swiss cheese offensive line the last 2 years, and without aid of a running game. Right. The defense knew what was coming every time. Right. And yeah, sure. He got to throw to Travis Hunter, and then you had some of the fringe NFL prospects there as well in that receiving core, Horn and Shepard and, yada, yada. But again, Swiss cheese offensive line, no running game. So the pass rush could pin its ears back every single time. You had immediate penetration on a decent chunk of his snaps. And he got good both at keeping his head about him. I think the criticism that he lacks pocket presence is absurd. And I also really like another absurd criticism of him. Earlier this process, people being like, oh, he's not a good athlete. It's like, okay, yeah. The son of one of the great athletes in the history of this sport is a bum athlete. Okay. Right. It's because he doesn't leave the pocket very much, but they've got him on the GPS on the, the few instances he does. And then he gets out in open field, 19, 20 miles per hour, way above average for the quarterback position. He's a really good athlete, but he uses his athleticism to make people miss in the pocket, extend plays. He doesn't want to run, right? Like he'll do the thing where he's scrambling, he'll start getting closer to line of scrimmage, and then the defenders will get sucked off of their assignment, starting to come downhill, because it's just instinct. Usually when the quarterback, has got the ball there and then he's approaching the line of scrimmage, he's going to run. Shadir will just stop on the dime, and then he'll just stand there, right? And inevitably someone is going to be open. So I just really like his game. Elite accuracy, elite placement. I love the way he is always leading people into space. I love the way that he's always putting the ball away from the defender, doesn't turn the ball over at all. So, this profile is as a dude who is just going to consistently move those chains, never turn the ball over, taking a profit. I think he's going to be a very, very, very good NFL quarterback for a long time.
134 college touchdowns, like 27 college interceptions. So the TD to interception ratio is predictive for success at the next level. Most famously, the Dak Prescott profile, right? So I see some Dak Prescott here, especially with how careful he is with the football, the accuracy that he has, the sort of tactical scrambling ability. And we show on Player Profiler the high school metrics. He ran a 4.65 in high school. That's pretty fast for a high school athlete. Like that's 91st percentile for a high school quarterback prospect. So he absolutely has the requisite speed to escape from pressure in the NFL. He's going to take some sacks. That is going to happen. I wish he was a little bit bigger. I wish he was had a little bit stronger of an arm. I wish he was a little faster. I wish a little bit.
And I wish I was a little bit taller and a baller as well. But the thing I was going to say the other way, because usually it's like this, right? It's like, the sack numbers and and all this stuff. flip it, flip it the other way. You never hear this argument made when Shadir Sanders finally gets to play behind a competent offensive line. What does that Shadir Sanders look like? We haven't seen it yet, right? Like his whole college career, it was the quick under duress thing, and then he's got to create. When he plays behind a good offensive line, I think his game is going to go up even more, right? Because it's the pocket passing thing. That's what he wants to do. So, I just look at it different. I think people got it twisted. Some people have it twisted with Shadir.
I think that it's going to be an involved equity holder at some franchise that insists they push the button on this guy. I think there are going to be some organizations that have, sort of a headstrong head coach, an empowered head coach, and they don't want anything to do with this situation, right? They don't want any text messages from Deion Sanders. I think that is playing a part in it. But if you have, let's say, the Giants, where Mara is already established, like, hey, you betrayed me once with Saquon, it's not going to happen again, and I'm going to get my way from now on. Like, so there are, Jerry in Dallas. So there are certain teams that make a lot of sense for him. I just think the Giants are their natural. I don't know, why wouldn't he go to the Giants?
Well, first, I wanted to address something that the idea of the trepidation inside of buildings of drafting Shadir, and the way that the media will paint that is like, oh, he's a diva and he's cocky and stuff like this. Any perceived trepidation inside the buildings of quarterback needy teams that could be considering this, I don't think that's what it is.
You don't think that's real? You think that's a media narrative?
I do, but I do think that there is some trepidation from, in particular, coaching staffs. I don't think it's because of that, though. I think it's because you were sort of starting to touch on this. Here's what I think it is. It will require a confident, headstrong head coach to draft Shadir, because particularly in that, like a scenario like I was talking about, especially if it was paired with Hunter, because let's say you're Kevin Stefanski, right? And you're like, man, for my offensive system, Shadir is such a good fit. The accuracy is awesome. He's a good timing passer. He's an anticipatory passer. I don't ever have to be concerned. You're going to throw the picks. You're going to take care of the ball for me. He's going to make the correct decision. Does he have the biggest howitzer arm in the world? No, but the other stuff, that's what you need to run my system. But if you're Kevin Stefanski and you're entering this season on the hot seat, the way you're going to think of this is, well, what if we're able to do that and we're able to get both Travis Hunter and Shadir Sanders? But then what if we start 1-4? What do you think is going to be happening in Cleveland? Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to be screaming, fire Kevin Stefanski and get Deion Sanders on the phone right now. Right. So like that's sort of the sort of situation where I think the trepidation comes in.
Right.
Because Deion, in my opinion, Deion Sanders he talked to the Cowboys. I forget if there was other teams he talked to this offseason. I think next offseason, if he wants to jump, that's probably the time that it happens. And obviously the organization that has either Hunter or Shadir Sanders, their fan bases might be pushing for that. And if there's a team that ends up with both of them and they start slow, there is going to be a fervor in that town. And that's something that the coaches would be thinking about, right? Because that could be the end of their job. Yeah.
Yes, I know. There are going to be NFL coaches that torpedo the idea of drafting Shadir Sanders. Not because of Sanders, because of Deion.
Because of the threat of it, right? Like hanging over your shoulder. Yeah, the stuff of like, oh, the things he said. Who cares?
It's not about the diva behavior from Sanders. I don't think that's an issue at all from Shadir. I think it's just this looming threat of worrying about the text messages coming in from Deion to whoever, and also just the spinning media narratives, and you can imagine coaches imagining worst case scenario and finding an excuse to just roll with the QB they have. This is what they do. This is what they do. We're good. I think we're good, especially if they think that would push the ability to compete a year out, and they feel like they need to win this year. It's a very interesting thing that with Myles Garrett in particular. Would bringing in Shedeur Sanders prove to Garrett that you're serious about winning, or would that be a signal to Garrett that you're rebuilding? I don't know.
Yeah.
They put themselves in a very difficult situation by bringing Garrett back at all. That's the bottom line.
Well, the thing with that, I wonder if that thing he was told is we're gonna be getting Kirk Cousins. Because, like, what else could it have been where it was painted to the public as like, oh, they told him something and they gave him the quarterback plan and Myles was cool with it and yada, yada. Well, what else could they have said? They haven't done anything yet, right? Like, and we know Watson probably will never take a snap for them again. It certainly wasn't, hey, man, we're about to trade for Kenny Pickett. Stop being mad at us, right? Like,
we got our guy.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like I kind of wonder if it was Cousins, because that would make sense with the Stefanski connection, and then you get your stopgap guy. That you do that with Cousins. I don't think that necessarily would preclude you from drafting a Sanders either. But could. I mean, they could decide that opens it up. But yeah, I'm sort of wondering if that's the case.
All right, looking beyond RJ Harvey, Scattaboo, give us your favorite running back sleeper in this class.
I would say, does Devin Neal count? Does he qualify? I can definitely.
Devin Neal's just pretty good overall.
Okay,
I was thinking maybe a step below Devin Neal on the fringe range, the fringe factor.
So we're talking day 3 guys, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking day 3 guys. Well, do you think Devin Neal's going to go in the 3rd round?
I think Devin Neal either goes late 3rd round or early 4th.
I mean, Devin, you agree. Devin Neal is a great football player. You can't put up those kind of numbers without being good. I don't care that he ran a little slow. Big deal.
And he's super underrated. It's another guy who's going to be a better receiver at the NFL level than he was in college. At Kansas, they did not allow him really to run routes beyond the line of scrimmage. It's like the thing of like the early down runner, and then Kansas had 3 veteran starting receivers and then a veteran starting tight end. All 4 of those guys are in this draft class. We'll see if maybe late day 3 or else UDFAs. But when they were throwing the ball, they were going further down the field, and then Neal would just be sort of the dump off guy because of the constitution of that offense. But when we have seen him in space without the ball in his hands, he breaks ankles, just like he does when he's in space with the ball in his hands, right? Because the dichotomy with Devin Neal that makes him so interesting is you don't see backs 220 plus pounds that have the feet like he does. He's a skilled player, but really good footwork in a big package. So yeah, I'm a big fan of his game.
Well, isn't that the back that San Francisco should be drafting? Because he has the explosiveness to get to the outside, and he seems like, to me, a perfect, wide zone running scheme running back.
Yeah, especially, if it's the thing where he did fall into day 3. I think the running, if the 49ers go with one early and it's not Genty, I think the perfect fit is Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson last year ran in essentially the exact same offense that the 49ers run. At least as far as the running scheme goes. I realize Iowa can't throw the ball, but the new offensive coordinator that had taken over there, Tim Lester, he was an offensive assistant previous to that with the Packers. Previous to that, he was a head coach at Western Michigan. But anyway, he installed the full scope of that zone running system. The Ferentzes prior to that, they did outside zone and inside zone, and then Lester added the mid zone. So you had the sort of the full cornucopia and the exact same run scheme that the Packers ran, which is essentially the same that the 49ers run. So that's Caleb Johnson needs to get into one of those systems. Schottenheimer is installing one of those systems with the Cowboys. The Rams, if they traded Corum, they probably would have to do that to open up a spot. But a team like that is who I would like for him.
You think the Rams could trade Corum?
You said.
No, I said trade for Corum in Dynasty.
Okay.
I said, oh my God, can you imagine that? Let's start that rumor now.
Okay, let's do it.
Yes, I've heard that the Rams, they're fully committed now to Kyren Williams, and they like a bunch of these day 3 backs. I think it just makes sense, and I think this is something that you'll see is the Rams trading Blake Corum to a team that maybe wants to get one of these running backs but gets boxed out for whatever reason, right? The chess pieces don't align, and they don't get their guy in the second round. Those teams will be in the market for Blake Corum.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we'll see. The Rams shouldn't have taken Blake Corum where they did it. Blake Corum was in this class. What would he be, like late fourth rounder or something like that, right? Like last year, all the running backs were going above where they should have gone because that class is so stinky. In this class, they're gonna get shoved down. I bet TreVeyon Henderson, maybe he wishes, this championship ring's nice, but in the last class, I might have been a friggin' top 10 pick with how terrible those running backs were, right? Like, so yeah, it just makes it sort of interesting.
Corum's on the move.
Corum's on the move. That's what no, just kidding. No, someone's gonna cut that. I'm gonna get in trouble. But some day 3 sleepers that I like. So I'll hit on a couple guys that aren't talked about as much.
But before you get into that, let's just summarize.
Yeah.
Because pick 39 through pick 44 is very interesting. Okay. So it's possible, that Judkins makes it to 39. You think it's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
Bears go Judkins, which then you have at pick 43 and pick 44, San Francisco and Dallas in play for Caleb Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo!
I mean, might see some maneuver in there because, both those teams ought to be sniffing around him. Right. So, if they miss out in the first round, they're on that short list. I could not love Caleb Johnson anymore for that scheme, but he's one of the guys in the class where he must get into that scheme, right? I don't think a gap team would be dumb enough to draft Caleb Johnson, but that's where he ain't going to be the same player. He has to be in the zone system. And for him, it's, the thing with the 40, and that's why, he fell down. Oh, he only ran a 4.57. He had all these explosive runs last year, but it was a fluke. He only ran a 4.57. It wasn't a fluke. That he had the same top speed on the GPS during that run that he had on the Iowa GPS, 22 miles per hour, which is utterly elite for a 225-pound back. The reason he ran a 4.57 was because he had a 7th percentile 10-yard split. This is apparent on his tape, too. It's a guy that needs a runway to get to top speed. Well, how can he access this more in the NFL? He faced at Iowa last year more stacked boxes than dang near anyone because Iowa, once again, could not run. And then they faced the gauntlet of awesome defenses in the Big Ten. So how is he doing it there? He was facing future NFL defenders every single week. It's because in that wide zone thing, you have the guys in the past we have seen where they mitigate the lack of speed and they can rip off the explosive run. Le'Veon Bell is obviously a great example. Arian Foster, guys like Larry Johnson going back in the day is my comp for Caleb Johnson. Guys where they build up to the speed, but on the
Johnson?
Double Johnson, I went.
Well, we're fisting Johnsons here? Oh, my God. Larry Johnson and Caleb Johnson. My goodness.
Johnson. You know how serious I am. That's exactly right. Those outside zone ones, you got the vision, you got the vision and the feel, the patience where he is forcing the linebackers to declare coming downhill the gaps that they're going to take before he chooses his hole. That's why you see Caleb Johnson getting through more open holes than analogous zone running backs, especially against the amount of stacked boxes that he faced last year, because he's so good at manipulating those second level defenders. Well, you're not running at full speed then. I mean, that's, the Le'Veon Bell behind the line of scrimmage type thing. You get that hole. That's how you get your 3-4 step runway to get up to the top speed that he works up to, right? And then once he gets to 22 miles per hour, you got a real problem on your hands. Right? He's difficult to tackle as is, but when he's a 225 pounder hurtling downfield 22 miles per hour, you got problems.
Devin Neal and Caleb Johnson both had seasons in college with a 10+% college target share. So they're also not only incredible downhill runners, they're both great receivers out of the backfield, super slick. And I do think Devin Neal, he is like the discount version of Caleb Johnson, a very similar fit. And I will predict that if San Francisco snipes Dallas on Caleb Johnson, then Dallas will immediately be in the market to trade for Blake Corum.
Blake Corum's gonna like call one of us during this and be
He's
like,
going to be on
are
the
you guys
move. He's
trying
going to
so hard?
Dallas, man. This is what's happening.
Why are you guys trying so hard to trade me? Like, I just bought a property in Los Angeles, and
go deeper. Go deep. A little bit later. Go day
Yeah.
3, round 6, round 7. Who you got on your, when you're stacking your top
Oh, yeah.
500 big board? Give me a guy that's like, player 185.
Okay, so here's a guy that has been moving up, like on NFL boards. I think he's going to go earlier than people think. Is Taj Brooks from Texas Tech?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about a bowling ball. This dude is all time bowling ball. It's Taj Brooks was 5'9". He weighed in at 214 at the combine, but he played 225, 226. Somewhere in there. So it's just like the trash compactor, right? Like, and it's just, muscles on muscles. And he has the really good agility, which he showed at the combine. He had one of the best 3 cones and shuttles that we saw there. Really good short area back. Between the tackles, he's going to help you out with that. And then he's awesome in the pass game. He is arguably he's top 2, I would say, in this class in pass pro. And then he's a very efficient receiver as well, reliable. He ain't going to drop the ball. You know where he's going to be. So, like, is this guy going to be a superstar in the NFL? No, but this is a guy who profiles as a really good mix and match, 1B type guy and applied to it. And it's a guy for fantasy owners, especially in PPR, that I know that guy is going to siphon touchdowns at the next level, but he's also, I think, going to catch a lot of balls. You're not going to, obviously there's not the explosive element with him there as some of those other guys, but just as a paper cut guy in the pass game, and he's going to be on the field. You have to have him out there because he's going to be the best pass blocker on whatever roster he goes to immediately. I can guarantee you that. So he's going to be playing passing downs right away. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I like that kid a lot too. We didn't get to see him last year. There's eligibility issue when he went to Arizona, which is too bad because they had some offensive firepower. Would have loved to see him more there, but his whole thing, it's just the agility. He breaks ankles. The pass game, I don't know what he'll ever give you with that. Like, but as far as the breaking tackles, the elusiveness, he has a really, really fun game. So it's another guy that profiles as a cool complementary back. Those are probably, one other one. This is a situational guy. I don't know the fantasy utility going forward, but like, I think he's going to bring value to an NFL team as Marcus Yarns from Delaware, just a pure burner. He's
and a great receiver.
Great receiver. He's 5'11". He weighed in at 193 at the combine. It's a little bit bigger. He'd been listed out at Delaware, but he's a shot out of a cannon straight line guy. He doesn't dance around much, which is interesting for a player his size. A lot of times, like Keaton Mitchell or some of those guys, you'd see a little bit more of the side to side. Yarns, he get the ball, it's straight ahead. He trying to find that crease and go the distance. He runs fearless too. But I think that's a guy you get 2 developmental bullets because first one is obviously going to be as the receiving back. I think if he fails there, his team can try him out as a receiver. He was one of the few players that the NFL specifically requested at the combine that they also work out at a separate position. There was like 7 of them. And Yarns was one of them as a receiver. You could be looking at a Tutu Atwell type if that ended up happening. Similar body types, and then Yarns a little bit bigger. As it come to, he added some weight there. But the straight line speed thing, and I seen Yarns making plays downfield like in college. So I think he can be a guy that could threaten down the field in the pros. Delaware would shift him out to the boundary. They would shift him out to the slot. They just do all these different things to get him into a matchup advantage. And when they would find him lined up against an FCS strong safety, a guy who's going to be selling cars in a couple of years, you just run right by him, right? Like and then make the play down the field. So I like Marcus Yarns' game.
Could be an Austin Eckler situation.
Yeah.
On Fast Draft, we have the Origins game, the all-rookie best ball game. Draft any 6 rookies, top 4 into your lineup every week during the season. You can follow along with your team as it scores points. All rookie. You look at the ADPs in the 4th round, 5th round. Tez Johnson, Mason Taylor, Restrepo, Jordan James. They are all going ahead of Taj Brooks, and I think it's interesting that Taj Brooks and Jarquez Hunter are adjacent, and they are similar players.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would be taking Brooks and Hunter that, again, are listening to this show and have been following their running back profiles on Player Profiler. I think there's those look like nice values to me.
I agree with that. Yeah, and those are guys that should be going a little bit earlier than that. Some of those names you toss, obviously I'd be a little bit lower on them. A couple of those running backs be higher on. This year in your dynasty draft, load up on running backs, and a couple of these guys, like you're sort of mentioning, they're falling beneath where their price point ought to be. So you get some really, really good values.
Absolutely. The code is Podfather. Code is Podfather on Fast Draft. You get a $50 deposit match with code Podfather. Give us a sleeper wide receiver.
Sleeper wide receiver. So
we're day three wide receiver.
Day three. Okay, we're gonna go day three. Okay. So I'll go. This guy probably gonna go middle of day three, I would say. This guy ain't going to be a superstar, but I think he's going to hang for a while. He's going to score some touchdowns. Isaac Tesla from Arkansas. People don't really talk about Isaac Tesla, and he's sort of
the Tesla coil.
Exactly. I'm going electric. If I'm drafting, if I'm turning in a decision, I'm buying a Tesla, and hopefully he doesn't get vandalized on the way to the facility. But Isaac Tesla, enjoy the VO, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Isaac Tesla, 6'4", 214, 993 RAS, burner 443, and he gets up off the carpet. He had the almost 40-inch vertical. He also tested well in the agilities, which I was actually kind of surprised about. I comp him to Alec Pierce because the thing I appreciate about his game is he's good with the downfield stuff. He can stack, and then when he gets down there, contested situation, that's where it was like, oh, like we seen a couple of the reps in Mobile. It would be really difficult for a defensive back to get higher than Tesla. I don't know if it's possible. Again, it's 6'4" with those kind of hops. Going up and getting it. It was interesting talking to Tesla down there, asking him about the opportunity for him. And he was talking about how important it was for him because he was at the lower levels of college football prior to this past season. And then he goes to Arkansas and is expecting it to be kind of his coming out party. And he got into a weird situation where Arkansas, they had to, they brought back Bobby Petrino, which is one of the most stunning hires I've seen in college football during my time. Bring back the guy that chased out of there after the the affair or whatever. But Bobby Petrino, you have the good play caller. Then you bring in Taylon Green as your quarterback.
You have Petrino and Patino that have had famous affairs.
Well, yeah. Did Rick Pitino ever get a neck brace? We might have to send him one. I know he was at the Italian restaurant, but
it was on the table of the Italian restaurant.
Allegedly, if we have to say that.
It was allegedly an assistant coach's wife with his permission, allegedly.
And allegedly there might be a Blake Corum trade on draft week. We're just we don't know. Allegedly, we're just talking here. But anyway, Arkansas, he go there. Taylon Green, 6'6", 225 pounds, and he's an awesome athlete. He's gonna be one of them debated guys all spring whenever he comes out. Not a great thrower. So you had that, and then it became this run first offense. But then also they had like this weird hockey line of receivers. They didn't have like this super duper star, but they had like 5 NFL receivers on that team. And it's all sort of guys in this. Andrew Armstrong from this class is another super interesting prospect. Even like lower down Broden, another big guy who can move. And then they had a couple. They had a couple guys that ended up transferring out. They have multiple dudes in this class. Yeah, Broden 6'5" and an 1/8, 194 pounds, and he ran a 4.37 this process. Arkansas had some receivers. Again, not a superstar, but because of this is why Tesla, he did not get as many snaps nor as many opportunities as he wanted. And like playing with Taylon Green, it wasn't exactly the best scenario to show off your deep ball ability. We got to see some of it, but It turns out like, his big break, he would have been better off going somewhere else. I don't know. I should have asked him what other scholarship offers he had. But anyhow, whole point being, so he was like, that stuff. And then he was overlooked initially by the big postseason All-Star games because of that. And then he went down, I think it was the Hula Bowl, and he impressed there. And that's how he got the call up to the Senior Bowl. He impressed there and then just utterly dominated the test thing. I think you can explain why his career went the way that it did and why last year the stats weren't better. So he's a guy I'm really intrigued by.
Jagger May here at Fast Draft likes
Jagger,
Ty Felton.
Oh yeah, Felton, yeah. Felton's got he has to clean up some catch point stuff. If he ever did, he'd be Stephon Diggs, right? Like it's the same sort of a deal where it's like got all the athleticism in the world, and we have seen some of that playmaking flash and these sorts of things. That's the last frontier for him. And it's one of those, we don't know, a lot of guys that struggle with that, they keep struggling with it, but some of the guys, the light turns on with it. And if he cleans that up, he's going to be a good starting receiver for a long time in the NFL. He has all the athleticism he needs. He knows what he's doing out there, but yeah, the ball skills thing is the thing we'll have to see.
Best comparable to Bo Melton in a good way. Bo Melton in a good way.
That's right.
I'm a Bo Melton fan.
I was too. I was a Bo Melton truth. Yeah, it was the same thing with that movement off the line and then the speed. And yeah, like, it's like you saw some of his reps at Rutgers, like, whoa. But yeah, got to clean up them ball skills.
Yeah. I like Bo Melton. I like Brian Edwards once upon a time. So, guilty as charged that there's some receivers that have never broken out, but there's still hope. There's still hope for Bo Melton. I'm leaving the candle burning for Bo Melton. And I have 10 burning questions for you. 10 burning questions.
Okay.
And we'll get you rapid fire. We'll get you out of here with 10 burning questions.
Okay, let's do it.
After this. Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it! 5, or 10. It used to be 5. Now it's 10. Not just 5. Not just 6. Not just 7. Not just 8. 10 burning questions for Thor Nystrom very quickly. Cam Ward, he is the 101, but yet is he the least hyped 101 you've ever seen?
Not the least one. Trayvon Walker.
At quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, at quarterback.
He's got to be. I feel like even Jared Goff got more hype than this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, recently, yes. Recently, for sure.
Why?
I wouldn't put him in the, same place as Lawrence, certainly Luck, some of the other, I suppose Kyler, different players, but you could do that. But maybe part of it is because the public wasn't as familiar with him before. But yeah, I also think he's not quite the caliber of prospect as those guys. But yeah,
you just don't think what about him is not? I really like him. I feel like I'm on an island because I really like this guy. And it's like he's the 101, and I'm like, well, okay, that tracks. Like, yeah, but no one really likes him. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, I really like his arm talent. It's the reason why back in the day he got the one scholarship offer he did. He literally only had the one coming out of high school from any level, and it was just because he went to a camp and Matt Leftwich, the quarterback coach at Incarnate Word at the time, happened to see a kid they'd never heard of throwing, 50-yard rainbows on the sidelines, because he wasn't even with the marquee, their primary targets were out there. And so it was like, holy crap, this guy can throw. But I like that. And then I also
was it like a small high school? Like what happened?
Yeah.
Was it like a rural high school?
So he was in Texas, and yeah, it was smaller. But the other thing was they ran a wing T offense, and Cam Ward's junior and senior year, I think the junior year he averaged like 8 passes a game, and then the senior year I think it was like it was like a passing explosion there, and he averaged like 10 or maybe 11. So it was like he didn't get that's what it was, and then he would go to these camps. It's like we talk about circumstances with draft prospects, and you don't get the right circumstance, it's tough. He would go to these camps, and this is a guy, he had a whip back then, right? But he'd go to the camps and they wouldn't give him a shot to go out there with the guys on their recruiting board because he was a 0-star recruit. Well, and Cam Ward's like, how the frick am I going to get above a 0-star recruit if my high school team, they run this ridiculous offense, they don't, it's just run and I'm not throwing, but then I go to the camps and they won't give me a shot either. So it was that sort of a thing. And,
that shit carries over, man.
That's it.
How you were graded as a high school recruit, that carries over. You've seen guys get, you've seen guys get drafted in the NFL draft strictly because of their high school number of stars.
I'll give you a great example of this. Trey Lance, to this day, does not like PJ Fleck. And the reason why is because Trey Lance, he's from Marshall, Minnesota, down there, like the left part at the very bottom of the state. And he was pretty good in high school. But he went to one of the Gophers camps and he thought that they would offer him. And when they sat him down to talk with him, they asked him, how we're trying to gauge your interest in moving to safety. And he like, I ain't a safety. And they're like, all right, well, we ain't offering then. And because of that, Trey Lance believes that is why the recruiting services had such a low star rating on him. He ended up getting the offer from NDSU, and then I think he got a couple FBS ones at the end. Was it Boise? Maybe Boise. Always their scouting is utterly absurd, but that is what happens, right? Like the circumstance with this, and then the recruiting services are also in part informed by the scholarship offers. But there's reasons that some dudes fall through the cracks, and so then it can become like this, going the other way on you.
This is why a lot of these schools don't do that shit. They'll basically placate the prospect and the recruit all the way along and be like, yeah, dude, we'll play. Don't worry. We'll play you at quarterback. Don't worry. You never know. They may have the intention of eventually moving this guy to tight end, but they know that they're not going to tell him that because he's not going to go. So they don't tell him. They told him, which is it's stupid on multiple levels because you might get him in the door. And like I talked about earlier, in that first week or two, you might see something special and you keep him at quarterback. They would have done that, obviously, if they saw that, but they didn't even give themselves that chance because they were so arrogant that they were able to say, no, you're definitely a safety at the next level.
Yeah, and I still remember the 2 scholarships they gave out to quarterbacks that process. One was to a kid named Zach Inexted. He ain't playing football no more. And then the other one was a junior college quarterback, but he was just a scrambler. And they gave him this guy. He got to campus in spring practice, and I don't remember his name. But this kid was so bad throwing the ball that he transferred right after the spring game. Because then the coaches were like, all right, dude, we fucked up. Like, you're not a quarterback, right? Like,
Bye-bye.
So, and then he transferred somewhere else and became a linebacker. But that's who they gave their 2 scholarships to instead of Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, teams make mistakes, as well. And then, that goes into.
You understand, that is like an illogical, super irrational thing to do.
For sure.
It was just, it's crazy. But you can never discount or underestimate the arrogance of these coaches. You know that.
I thought you were going to say PJ Fleck instead of these coaches. I was just ready for the slander, but
I mean,
that's for sure. Yeah. And then, Cam Ward, he, you get unlucky all the way up until that moment, but it was like, a sunbeam came through and it was like the light of God shone on Cam Ward because it turned out to be perfect. Mac Leftwich and Eric Morris, the guys at Incarnate Word. Eric Morris had worked with Pat Mahomes at Texas Tech, right? And he ran the Mike Leach air raid. right? And then Cam Ward got lucky again because his first year on campus, 2020. I don't want to say lucky, but it was the COVID thing. The fall season for the FCS got pushed to the spring because of that. Cam Ward had longer than he otherwise would have to learn both the playbook, but also playing traditional quarterback, right? Like, I mean, he hadn't played in a real quarterback offense before. So that's how, he sort of got off the ground running. He won their starting job right out the get, and then he dominated in the FCS and followed Morris to Wazoo. But that was sort of the thing. What I like about him, it's natural arm talent, and he is also a natural playmaker. There's an element to his game where, some of these quarterbacks we see, it's mechanical. The decision making process mechanical. Their mechanics are good, but it's all like they're like Manchurian candidate quarterback, like Kirk Cousins, good example of that. He's Manchurian candidate quarterback. But like you also have guys like Cam Ward, where it's
wait, what's a Manchurian candidate quarterback? That's amazing. I've never heard this term.
Yeah, just a guy. It's like they're like robotic with, and not in a necessarily a bad way, but like you can tell that they've worked on their mechanics so much, and then also it's just drilled in the progression line.
Who was the kid that was drafted by the Raiders because his dad basically crafted him from scratch?
Oh, Marinovich. That's
Todd Marinovich. See, Todd Marinovich was the original Manchurian quarterback.
Exactly. Yeah, and Cam Ward's like the opposite of this because this stuff that these guys were getting taught in their their quarterback tutors and their friggin' camps and all this sort of stuff. Yes. Cam Ward wasn't invited to any of that stuff. Well, he's a wing T quarterback, 0-star, right? Like so none of that. So there's just this sort of, like I said, kinetic sort of decision making process, and he does stuff on the field where it's like he'll attempt throws nobody else will attempt. And sometimes that's awesome. And then sometimes it's like, bro, what are you doing? And one of them is the, like Shadir, I told you, he doesn't like to break the line of scrimmage. He'll wait there, and then play off the defender's expectations. Cam Ward, he won't throw the ball away. He just hates it. And so like, if he getting close to the line of scrimmage, he will attempt trick shot throws sometimes. Like, impossible throws. Like one of his favorite ones is he'll go YOLO and then he'll throw it on the move across his body and try to get it out across to the other hash, to the second or third level. And sometimes those balls would start to die on him around the middle of the field, and someone would just step right in front of it. We've seen, a small handful of interceptions that were exactly like that. But my whole thing with Cam Ward is, yeah, absolutely best arm talent in the class, and you're going to get the highest propensity of explosive plays. Yes, agreed. But those explosive plays, they go in direct conjunction with the elevated turnover rate, because the way that, it's like the guy at the furthest end of that continuum is Brett Favre, right? You could try to cut down Brett Favre's turnovers, but to do so, the explosive plays would have gone down in direct conjunction, right? Because they're on the thing that is leading to the one is leading to the other,
right?
So, it's the riverboat gambler thing. So, with Cam Ward, it's going to be more the up and down. You're going to get, amazing play, and you're going to get the explosives, and you're going to get really, really creative, kinetic quarterback play. And then you're also going to get some field flippers on you. There will be games where his team loses because of a turnover that everyone then is yelling at him about for the next week. Miami almost lost to Cal this past season because of turnovers with Ward. And of course, Ward is the reason that they were so good, but it's like, at the NFL level, the margins get a little bit closer. And so that's my thing with him, whereas Shadir Sanders, just steady Eddie, always.
You're doing great. This is an incredible 10 burning questions segment, and we're going to go rapid fire from now on. If you all like this show, like it, subscribe to the channel, share it, let people know. We're now well over 500 live viewers. Let's keep it rocking. Let's boost the popularity of this particular show because Thor deserves it. Now, Jalen Milroe, what's his range of outcomes?
It's a fascinating. My answer changed. What was that? 2 afternoons ago. That invitation is pretty fascinating, and I've been texting around, and at least people I have talked to, nobody knows. Yeah, I'm curious for someone to get to the bottom of that, but like I haven't, I mean, outside of just the obvious, oh, he's going higher than you think, and then some people would be like, oh, it's so that they can have a day two guy, some of the years that they do the day two. But if it's that, why didn't we hear more? The only reporting that I had heard about the amount of, the invitations at all, prior to the individual players that got them was that the NFL wanted to cut down on invitations this year. And last year they had 13 guys. So, we haven't gotten a full invite list yet. So, was that a false report before? And now they're going to have more, or that I don't know. I would be pretty surprised if Milroe went in the first round. It was some at the beginning of the process. I thought, man, if this guy absolutely dominates the pre-draft process and gets the narrative like Richardson did, that's how, maybe, but like he didn't. He badly struggled at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. And then he didn't do anything at the combine. I don't understand why he didn't do anything at the combine. At the pro day, he showed the athleticism that he had. He had a perfect opportunity at the combine. But, the thing with Milroe, it's on Twitter yesterday, I comped him to Happy Gilmore. It's the guy that can hit the ball a mile and he can't putt. I think he had like a 21-1 TDI&T rate on balls throwing 20-plus air yards in his career. And he had an even TDI&T rate on balls 19 or less air yards, which is horrible for a quarterback prospect. Of course, it's going to go on day 1 or 2. I still think he's going on day 2. I would have, a couple of days ago, I would have said, oh, for sure, latter half of round 3, somewhere around, that sort of a range. Are they inviting someone to the draft that they think is going to go in round 3? I doubt it. So now I'm going to toggle that to round 2. Do we have a mystery team in round 1? I just don't know what that profile, if you could get there, but I think round 2.
He's going very late in the 3rd round on Fast Draft. There's exploitable ADPs on Fast Draft, especially the Origins rookie game. You can get him again. 3rd round, late 3rd round, Jalen Milroe. After Isaiah Bond, after Jalen Royals. What are we doing here, people? What are we doing? Okay, do you think, is it Tyler Shuck?
Yeah, Shuck, yeah.
Is he, because there's always debates on, is it Shook and Shuck and all that. You think, is he a better quarter? He'll have a better career in the NFL than Milroe?
No, I think I would put my money on Milroe.
Yeah.
I'm not a Shuck truther.
Okay.
Our mutual friend Derek Brown is, and I'll give you, I'll tell you one. Debro I consider him a modern philosopher, and I'm going to give you something that he said to me that will be your mnemonic device. Anyone out there, the pronunciation on this. Debro and I had other, different sort of second, third tier quarterbacks that we liked heading into the Senior Bowl, and he loved Shuck, and I was a little bit lower on Shuck, and we sat down in advance of the first practice. They're taking the field, and I started making fun of Shuck, and he turns to me and he goes, "Bro, Shuck's gonna," word that starts with F. I guess I already swore on this. He said Shuck's gonna fuck.
No, Shuck is gonna fuck.
Yeah, and then Shuck was, during he was arguably the best quarterback out there, during part of the reason. The hype started getting going. But for me, Tyler Shuck, there's concerns on the profile that I don't want to say other people overlooking him, but they're more focusing on the last year, of course, and then the size, the athleticism. Kid's got arm talent, former top recruit. For me, though, I can't just solely focus on that. The 5 years before that, well, it wasn't the best. The couple years he had, it just wasn't. Like Oregon thought the Oregon thought he was the next Justin Herbert. When they signed him, it's like, oh, it's going to be the next Justin Herbert. And then he got the shot to replace Herbert, and they gave him the quick hook. Against the better defenses, he was having issues with his decision making. Especially under duress, and so they preferred to start Anthony Brown, right, and give up the rest of the career of Shuck. He had multiple years of eligibility left. So then he goes to Texas Tech, and it was injury, right? All 3 years, suffering the injuries, and there is sort of a Mr. Glass thing there. A lot of durability questions in the past. Now,
we got to go rapid fire. We gotta go rapid fire.
Okay.
I gotta get you out of here. I gotta get you out of here, Thor.
I'm sorry.
You know, that was a great answer. It was an incredible answer. So we talked about Corum earlier. Is there another NFL running back that you think is relatively safe from the NFL draft, a backup?
Jordan Mason.
Okay, definitely. I think Gainwell. I think Gainwell is pretty safe. I think that even if the Steelers are going to draft a running back, we know that. But I still like Gainwell as a guy that I would actually draft in a startup. You like him as a player?
I like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool, good, yeah. And so it's not a slam dunk that like Warren is better than Gainwell, right?
No. I mean, like, especially situational usage, if nothing else. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Genty with Bowers on the Raiders. How much do you love it? Scale of 1 to 10.
That would be fun. Yeah,
okay, so
that
9?
would be fun. I probably put it at about a 9.
90% opportunity share. How do you not love that?
Genty, they in Boise, they called him Michael Myers because he stands super upright, but like with his hands like this, like before the snap. So they call him Michael Myers. And it'd be cool if we get Michael Myers in the silver and black.
Who do you think is gonna? There's gonna be a. By the way, I have to make sure that we state the truth here. The Jets are going to draft a receiver. They don't have anyone behind Garrett Wilson. I mean, they do. Special teamers, and then again, saw him on Hard Knocks. These guys are, is it Brownville? Whatever.
Oh, Brownlee. Yep.
Something. Brownlee. Again, these guys. I wish them all the best, but they're going receiver. Who is going to be the receiver that goes to New York to die?
It'll probably be like Trey Harris.
Oh God! D-bro!
Yeah. That's for you, D-bro.
Oh my God, the modern philosopher had to have been sacrificed with the modern philosopher. Poor guy. Oh no, don't do it to D-bro. It's going to happen to somebody.
Yeah, so in the second round, I feel like in the first, I don't think they'll take time. Maybe they prove me wrong, but yeah, I think in the second round, that's where you could see that. And
just no Iowa State receivers to New York, please. Who do you like better? Another question. We're almost to the end of this thing, I promise. Jalen Noel or Jaden Higgins?
Higgins, but on my board, very close. I think I had Higgins 5, and I think I had Noel 6 or 7, somewhere in there. So same, pretty close.
Why?
Mostly because Higgins, you get the boundary thing. I like his game. He can get downtown. That when you just get him straight ahead, the slants, drags, that sort of a thing. He can't do like whip route type stuff. But like, if you can win downfield like he can, and his hands are insane, 3% career drop rate over heavy volume, 2.2% or less the last 3 years consecutively. I just think you get a little more value there, whereas so the ceiling's higher. But like with Noah, of course, it's a higher floor. That guy's going to start for a long time in the slot. And he can also win third sector of the field, which not every slot receiver can do. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yes, we're this is the end. Last question. Don't count the questions, everybody. Don't count to try to hold us accountable to exactly 10 questions. We're getting Thor out of here. He's been super generous with his time. Give us a bold prediction, man. A bold prediction for the draft. Something you think is gonna be, super splashy.
I'll say that the Browns leave the draft with Travis Hunter and Shadir Sanders.
How do you not fucking love that, man?
It would be incredible.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.